Supreme Leader Snoke trains Kylo and Dagobah, plus we have Princess Leia teaching Holdo how to fly a speeder, all in this week's episode of Star Wars Weekly. Hello fellow Star Wars fans and welcome back to the channel. Every week I talk about the comics, novels, TV series, and more, so I'm happy you're joining me. We have some exciting things to talk about this week. We have just 2 new comics. The first one has me very hyped. This is Star Wars Age of Resistance Supreme Leader Snoke. Yes, well, this is not really a backstory on Snoke, unfortunately. It's more of a story basically about Kylo. This is the relationship between Supreme Leader Snoke and Kylo Ren. This is all about his training. So this is something that I thought we might have seen in The Last Jedi, but we didn't get. So we have Kylo Ren. We open up in this issue where Kylo Ren is literally being suspended in the air above this chasm by Snoke. And Snoke literally is teaching him about how to let go of his light feelings and embrace the dark side, and he literally lets Kylo fall. And Kylo has to save himself basically using the Force. And, well, then the next place they go to is Dagobah. Yes, the same planet that Luke Skywalker once trained on. Yes, the teacher of Ben Solo. The same exact cave. He goes into this cave because Snoke wants him to learn to kill this last temptation to the light side. So he goes to this cave. He fights the apparition of Luke Skywalker, kills him, and is not done yet because then he's faced with his parents who are calling him. And, well, guess what? He actually doesn't kill his parents. He shows a semblance of hope. And then in the end, he takes out his frustration on the cave and completely destroys it to the displeasure of Snoke. And that's the issue. So, yes, this is a really good character dive into Kylo Ren and seeing that relationship between him and Snoke, because we didn't really see a whole lot of them actively training. So to actually see a dark side user training their apprentice, we haven't really seen a whole lot of that in general for the Star Wars timeline. So to see, especially in the sequel trilogy, to see the methods of Snoke, he's very brutal with his training, right? He even compares his training to Luke, saying, hey, Luke would have caught you with the Force before you hit it. I'm not Luke, and that's why he would have held you back. That's why you're with me now. So it really does a great job of showing what that apprenticeship was in the earlier parts of the sequel trilogy here. We get a bit of Kylo with the mask. Snoke does not like him wearing that mask. He says, wearing Vader's, trying to embrace Vader on this planet's not going to work when they're going to Dagobah. I like the little kind of mention of Luke Skywalker with Snoke and about how Snoke actually respects Luke Skywalker. And Luke, he's actually fearful of Luke, but he also says he wished that he could have got Luke to his side. So there's so much of this history that I'm sure they're just holding back on this issue because they want to reveal more of it, hopefully in The Rise of Skywalker. I feel like Snoke is not done yet. We got to hear something about him in The Rise of Skywalker. And another thing I really enjoyed is just like the conflict again of Kylo facing his parents, and like their parenthood was not the greatest. Leia was a politician. You had Han, who was still running around the galaxy, not really ready for being a father with his ways of smuggling, so they didn't really get brought up right. So that whole dynamic between all these characters has never been the greatest, but to see him still feel that light side calling to him that we seen when he first appeared in The Force Awakens, and seeing that brought through, who knows how long this takes place before The Force Awakens. I'm thinking pretty close there. But overall, this is a really awesome story. This almost feels like it was a deleted scene from The Last Jedi or The Force Awakens. That's how much this really delved into the personality of the characters. Another thing I thought that was really cool is that it was kind of misguided or guided to think that Snoke has other apprentices. He literally says at the end of this issue, now that you destroyed the cave, how am I going to train the other apprentices? And Kylo literally says, I'm going to be the only apprentice you need, adding to that foreshadowing of him literally killing him in the throne room. But that is also interesting because is there other Force users now that have been trained before Kylo that has, the First Order Snoke is having them do their own kind of missions? Maybe we'll see that happen in The Rise of Skywalker. Not really sure, but out of all the Age of Resistance books so far, this one's my favorite. There was a really good one with Hux. I enjoyed the Poe Dameron one, but it didn't do a whole lot. Now we have a couple more coming out. We still have Kylo Ren. He's getting his actual story. We're also getting Rose and Paige are getting a story next week, as well as Rey next week. So we have a couple more issues left to go. Moving on to our Star Wars Adventures comics, we have Star Wars Adventures issue number 25 from IDW Comics. Now, what's different about this issue, usually they have the main story and a backup story. No, there's just one story, and this one's called The Right Wrong Turn. This is before the events of A New Hope. We have Emmeline Holdo, as well as Leia Organa. They're on Coruscant. Leia's teaching Holdo how to fly a speeder. And, well, Holdo is very eclectic, very strange, especially at this point in her life. She's a little bit weird, and she's going crazy with flying the speeder. She wants to go and find this museum that is on the 4th level of Coruscant. So it's this whole little adventure story about them just flying around, attracting these criminals, and they get out of that only to find themselves in a situation with these bugs, and they finally get down to this museum. And all in all, Leia, was kind of gritting her teeth through this whole experience, but by the end of it, she realizes, hey, that was kind of a fun adventure, and I appreciate Emmeline Holdo as my friend. So getting into the specifics of this issue, I will say that there's a lot of connections to, of course, Claudia Gray's Princess of Alderaan, which is a great book, still one of my favorites of the canon. And in that book, I think it was slightly hinted that Holdo always had this really weird sense of luck about her. Whenever she was around Princess Leia, she would do some really miraculous things. So that also was presented itself in this issue. I did really like seeing how we learn that there's like 5,000 different levels of Coruscant, and we actually go to basically underneath the ground to an extent, to that level 4, which you can't even access directly through the air. So that was really cool getting into that. Something I thought they did great in this issue was really represent the different levels of society, right? So the further you go down the levels, the lower class tends to live there, and the higher class tends to live in the clouds. And Leia, being very well off at this point of her life, where she's a princess and she's obviously got a lot of prominence in the social culture, looks towards these people of lower class and tries to kind of get on their level. So it really shows us that type of leadership that Leia does, and that she has, and how she comes to appreciate people of all walks of life. And of course, learning how to drive in Star Wars. I don't think we've actually gotten a story about that in Star Wars. Learning how to fly a speeder, yeah, it's a rite of passage for a lot of characters, like getting a provisional license, stuff like that. So it's always fun seeing those like little bits of minutia thrown into Star Wars. So that is going to do it for Star Wars Adventures issue number 25. So if my predictions are correct, I believe that from this point forward, guys, we're going to have Star Wars sequel trilogy content to talk about up until the release of The Rise of Skywalker. So it's super, super exciting. We have more Age of Resistance comics coming out. Then we're going to have Triple Force Friday. Then we're going to have, the comics that come out, the books that come out with that. Then we're going to have Resistance Season 2, which is going to bridge that gap between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. Then you could throw The Mandalorian in there if you really count that as sequel trilogy content. I don't really, because it's only 5 years after Return of the Jedi. But nonetheless, there's going to be no shortage of speculation, no shortage of theories for you guys to start crafting around all of this ancillary material coming out. So what are you excited about the most? What did you think about Supreme Leader Snoke? What did you think about him training Kylo on Dagobah? I never would have thought that would actually happen. So cool. Just such cool stuff. So let's talk about it all in the comment section down below. If you guys are new to the channel, welcome. If you like this video, you can go ahead and support the channel simply by subscribing, and go ahead and do yourself a favor and hit that notification icon bell so you'll never miss another video. So that's gonna do it for me, Starrapter. Thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you always. Thanks for checking out the video. Please hit that thumbs up symbol. It helps me know that I'm making content that you guys enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I also include 2 videos down below you guys should check out. And please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps support me, and it notifies you guys of when I get new videos up on the channel. You can also contact me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Starrapter.